Time to check in with Carmi Levy, our CTV tech analyst, on a couple of stories in tech this week, starting with one that I guess we've dealt with a few times, but another deadline is approaching. Now, I understand this is in the U.S., but it's a pretty big deal. So TikTok, the potential ban, I guess, which has been put off, as I said, at least a couple of times, is back in play. And we read yesterday, Carmi, all of a sudden, Amazon apparently interested in buying TikTok. So what's happening here?
Yeah, so a late-breaking sort of bid from Amazon. Again, we don't know any dollar figures or anything, but we do know that Amazon has wanted to be a social media player for a while. They bought Twitch for $1 billion a few years back, and they would certainly love to be able to use social media to get us to buy more stuff on their platform. So add them to a list of potential bidders that includes YouTuber Mr. Beast, the guy who founded Reddit, Perplexity AI, Oracle. And, essentially what happens here is a company is, by U.S. law, needs to sell itself to an American company by this new deadline, Saturday, April 5th, or be at risk of being shut down in the U.S. It won't directly affect Canadian customers. There are 14 million of us who use it here. But, of course, if 170 million Americans drop off of TikTok's radar, that's going to leave us with a much smaller audience to play with. So influencers here and businesses are certainly watching very carefully. Really don't know, like the U.S. government, Donald Trump is saying he'd like to save the company, but the only thing that really matters here is, will the Chinese government agree to whoever buys the company? Will they agree to transfer certain parts of the technology? Right now, nobody knows what's going to happen Saturday, and the clock is ticking. So if you're a TikTok user, you're kind of looking at your options and going, okay, what do I do if TikTok goes down? Am I also using YouTube? Am I also using Instagram? What are my other platforms? This is the time to really look at sort of how you're communicating with your audience and make sure that you've got a plan B ready to go if need be.
This has come and gone a couple of different times, right? I kind of have the impression that as much as this was talked about, I don't know, for whatever reason, I think TikTok's not going away. Is it? In the U.S.?
It isn't. I mean, it isn't. With, almost 1 in 3 Americans, or, close to half of all Americans using it. It is an economy unto itself. And so I think what will happen this time will be pretty much what happened last time, which was around January 20th, Inauguration Day. There was a deadline then, too, and everybody freaked out. And it went down for a few hours, then came back up and continued as was. I think we're kind of looking at a similar situation now. The government has hinted that they might very well just kick it down the road, maybe just give them another 75 days or 90 days or whatever, and then they'll deal with it then. Anyone can come up with the money to buy the company. That's one thing. Do they have the technology? That's another. And that's not something that you can get done in 75 days or a week or whatever. You need a lot more time. It's probably going to take another few months at least for that to play out. And of course, then, will China's government agree? That's something nobody knows.
Yeah. All right. Let me move on to this other story, which is not really a story, but it is kind of funny when you think about it. We talk so much about how social media has changed the world, if you will. The poor old cell phone kind of got relegated, I think, to a secondary story here. Is this right? 52 years ago today, the first cell phone call was successfully made by a Motorola engineer. That's like 1973?
Yeah, hard
That's
to believe.
crazy.
April 3rd, 1973. A guy by the name of Martin Cooper, who is, obviously he's a legend in engineering. He worked for a company called Motorola. We might have heard of them. And Motorola was racing with Bell Labs, which was owned by AT&T, to develop the first cell phone. And they figured it out. They created that first, the brick phone that we're all familiar with if we were around back then. And he went out onto 6th Avenue in Manhattan, and he called Joel Engel, who happened to be the head of his competitor, Bell Labs. And he called him and he said, "I'm calling you on a cell phone," and just to kind of tweak him. The fact that that was who he chose to call, not his wife or his kids or his boss or whatever, I think is kind of the ultimate, let's call it nerd burn. And I think it's a wonderful way to start the wireless era. Easy to kind of forget now, right? These things it was $4,000 then, $28,000 now. It took 10 hours to charge, and then the battery died in 30 minutes. It cost Lord knows how much per minute to talk. No texting, no apps, no anything. And yet all what we do today, social media, smartphones, wireless data, you name it, the entire digital economy, it kind of started with that device. That was one of those critical devices that made everything we enjoy today possible. And all from that one moment where I can only imagine being somebody walking down 6th Avenue in Manhattan and seeing this, you were witnessing history.
Yeah. You know what? I was going to say, don't you miss those old days, first days of cell phones when some of them had their own cases? Like you'd put your cell phone in like a luggage container because it was so big and so heavy.
And I remember early in my career, I was filing reports for the CJAD newsroom, and I remember I was covering a story out in, I think, near Old Montreal or Chinatown. And I walked out onto the sidewalk and I pulled out one of those early, it was a Dynatac, it was that brick phone.
Yeah.
And I called into the newsroom, and I remember a crowd of people. This was the early 90s, so I'm dating myself here. But a crowd of people stopped what they were doing and just stood like dead silent as I filed my report into the newsroom. And so, today nobody even bats an eyelash or gives it a second look. But back then, that was a major deal. And you kind of forget how magical this stuff is when you first see it.
Well, like calling from a car. I had a boss one time who had a cell phone in his car. The thing was huge, right? And you have to go through the ship-to-shore operator to actually get you something, but you could call from your car. So, yeah, we've done okay since. All right, listen, I don't want to run out of time. I want to get to this next part. We have an election coming up at the end of the month, and you have a warning here, and I would not have thought of this, so tell everybody what we should be aware of here.
Be careful in your inbox and your text messaging, because scammers are sort of glomming on to the fact that it's an election campaign, and they're sending emails and text messages and other messages that are designed to look like they come from a legitimate political party, and when in fact they're not. And so we're seeing warnings from Elections Canada. We're seeing warnings from the Commissioner of Canada Elections and the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. Be on the lookout for that, because that's the theme for scammers this month as we track down to April 28th. Don't trust that it is an actual political party. If you want to connect with your political party, don't click on that link in your inbox, because there's a greater than, and my inbox is filled with them now. I'm getting them all the time, and I know I'm not the only one. Instead, reach out directly through legitimate channels. Don't use your messaging. Yeah,
and be careful, I guess, if you're just on social media in general, right? During an election, there's going to be a lot of stuff out there that's not coming from campaigns directly, but from people like this too.
Big time. And it looks like it is coming from them, because the logos look good and the fonts. Like, basically what they're doing is they're taking actual ads and actual content, and they're just repurposing it for themselves. And certainly we live in an age of AI. AI makes it easier for anyone to create this kind of content, make it look legitimate. So we really need to be more cynical. Don't trust that it is. The problem with all of this is that political parties, the rules are more relaxed for them to send spam. They're allowed to spam us, actually, legitimately send spam. But of course, a lot of it is not legit. A lot of it can get us into trouble. So even if it looks real, even if it's in your social media feed or whatever, bail out of that and contact them directly if you're so inclined.
Good advice as always. Carmi, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Great being with you, Aaron. Thank you.